Hello everyone, welcome back to The Exchange. Today we have with us my first boss, Fiona Willis. Fiona employed me in Australia 14 years ago in the Otto Restaurant. How was it, Fiona?
How was it for you, Val? Well,
I will share with the audience how was it for me.
Well, I think the fact that we still know each other now kind of reflects that we always got on, even when I was a hard boss to you. Because you were so fresh, you were still going to university at the time. How long had you been in Australia at that time?
Just a year and a half, yeah.
Okay. Your English was still learning, and you were a food runner. But you and I, for some reason, we always had a laugh. Always, right from the beginning. But I was pretty tough, I believe, so people say.
Yeah.
Would you agree?
I definitely would agree that you were a very tough boss, but there is a but. I think there is a massive advantage of being the tough boss, but at the same time, I think by being tough, you taught so many great wait staff how to be a waiter. And again, that's who I learned from.
I like to think that I tried to keep the standard high. But back to how you and I know each other, I think, how many years were you there? You were there for years. You went from food runner, waiter, food runner, king of the pass, calling the pass, waiter.
I wish I had crown.
And then became the accountant for the restaurant group.
Yes.
That is a trajectory not many people do. That blew me away. It was like, how? But in the meantime, lots of things happened with you. But even when I changed roles and became more administrative than being on the floor, if I had a problem, you used to come and help me, especially with Excel.
Yeah, that's okay. I think
That's
this story is
true.
not about me, but it's about Fiona today.
I know. But it says something about how we know each other.
Yeah, but I think how we worked, it was so good. And again, I shared with you a few nights ago that my best memories is actually working with you.
Oh,
it was hardcore, always under pressure, but never hard feelings.
With humour.
With
That's
humor,
what it's all
always.
about.
It was the best. And unfortunately, a number of people didn't understand that humor, didn't understand the reason why.
Are you saying that people hated me?
No, I'm not saying they did hate you. I'm saying all of them hate you. No, I'm joking. Not some. No, it's a joke.
No.
It's a joke. Look,
No, when I look back, particularly at that restaurant, which was 17 years at that restaurant, I had such a great time. I still have so many friends from there. I started there as a waiter myself.
Yeah.
And kind of went up the ladder, so to speak. And I do look back and think, well, actually, I look at my management style back then, which is called authoritarian, which is, being the boss, saying how you want it done, getting it done. But I always thought that I was fair and did it with humour. And I think that there's many people that have followed me from place to place in the past and stayed there for a long time. And I think there's still people that look back on their time at Otto as like, that Fiona, she was a ball buster. But hopefully with some kind of affection.
Don't forget
and also a lot of people, like you said, I think that a lot of people learnt some things and took that with them. Learnt some things from me and took that with them onto their next step. And there's many people that left there working with me, went on to be managing restaurants of their own. Oh, not necessarily their own, but managing restaurants. And there are many people that left, were here at Otto, went to become a manager somewhere else. They used to call me and ask me, what would you do? What should I do? What should I do?
Yeah.
Including the person that ended up taking my job.
Yeah. No,
which I told you about.
Yes, I do remember. But my point is, I think it was an institution where people actually could come with zero experience like me and learn everything.
Maybe. I think that people have a propensity for hospitality. Some people, they're just not the right people. They're not the right character. They don't have the right personality. You have to want to do things for people and for money. So,
Okay. Do you think
Look, I think that a classic example would be if you go into a 4-star hotel lobby and you go to the restaurant and the people that are serving you are usually not meant to be in hospitality. They're just people that go through the motions of being in hospitality and they've missed the whole boat. Anyway, maybe that's not the right direction to go with that. People that are naturally really good at hospitality and excel. They're people.
Mm-hmm. But would you be able to distinguish them in the beginning of the journey when you were employing them?
Good question. At an interview, look, I always found when I was interviewing people for a job as a waiter, the way that people talk, if somebody's really shy and introverted, well, that's not a great sign that you're going to be a good waiter. But there were many times that I hired people that, in hindsight, I shouldn't have, but you can't always tell from the beginning of sitting down what somebody's organisational skills are like, or how good is their memory, or that kind of stuff. So no, I couldn't always tell. No. I made some mistakes, and I fixed my mistakes.
How quickly?
Sometimes quite quickly. There was a point where there were so many staff at Otto, ex-staff, current staff, people who had come and not worked out. If I went into a restaurant in Sydney, I would run into somebody that I'd fired.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. That used to happen all the time. It'd be like, oh, God, no, our waiter, I fired that waiter.
How funny if they would serve you.
Yeah, I know. I remember one time I went to this restaurant at Darling Harbour and there was a Serbian waiter that I had fired. He was awful. And I was there with my 2 nieces who were little, and it was just me and my 2 nieces, and he was our waiter. Thank God I had those children with me because he was really nice.
Okay. That's a good example.
That was very funny. Yeah, he bought them free desserts and everything. No, he was very nice. I don't know if he spat in my food, but...
How did you end up in Otto? What did you do before?
Well, how did I end up in Otto? Actually, I was a general manager of a restaurant. That was the worst restaurant I ever worked in for a couple of months, and I had to get out of there. I gave my resignation, and they offered me $20,000 a year more to stay, so I stayed. I stayed for about another month, and then I couldn't work for this company, so I left. And at the time, my friend was the assistant manager at Otto, and I just wanted a job.
Yep.
So I got a job at Otto as a waiter. I asked my friend and was like, hey, do you have any jobs? It was just before Christmas, 2003, and he gave me a job. And at that stage, my intention was, I just want to be employed over Christmas because that was the time when you'd make the most money. And then 17 years later, there I was.
No, 17 years later, you left.
Well, not so much. I was made redundant after that many times.
All right, we're not going to talk about it. Let's focus on the positive, on the good memories.
Look, what had to be done had to be done.
Look, unfortunately, many businesses trying to cut costs.
Absolutely.
Whatever happened had happened.
But I did have a great time there.
What was the most interesting event which happened to you in Otto?
There was too many years, too many great people. Like what I remember is there was bunches of people that I remember really fondly that worked together, but they were over different time periods, and sometimes it's like, oh yeah, that person, and I forget that they didn't know those other people because there was 7 years between. Okay. But Julia and that whole bunch, that was a really good bunch.
Very strong.
Really good waiters. And Lily was a different one from years later. Yeah. She was very memorable and very fond memories.
Is she still in Sydney?
I believe so. What was your original question? Oh, what was my good points? Uh, some of the famous people that I worked for there.
For example?
My favourite famous person that I've ever looked after was Robert De Niro.
Yeah.
And Robert De Niro knew my name. And he knew Thomas's name as well. And
Oh,
I was really
really?
impressed by that, because you want to have people do say, who's the best famous person that you've looked after? So when he came in, he was in a car with his family. And so there was about 9 of them, I think, altogether. And they were in a car on their way down to icebergs at Bondi. And apparently the paparazzi were after them. And they were like, well, we're not going there. It's too public. So they turned the car around, or the driver did, and somebody called Otto and said, hey, can you do this? You know, we'll be there in 20 minutes. Have you got a private space? Can you do this? Can you do this? And the phone call had come to me. So I was like, yeah, we can do that. And they came in the back way, and they came in through the kitchen, and then we took them to a room upstairs, and they'd wanted privacy. And you know that
A
room?
restaurant?
No, I think it was before that room was changed.
Different name.
It was the other one.
Okay.
But it was surrounded in glass. So I was up there going mad, taping blankets to the walls so that not every single person going by.
Next
Because
to the
that was their
bathroom.
main thing, was privacy.
Yeah.
And it all worked. We had those sliding blinds on the door. I think I put blankets. They came in and they loved it so much that they came in a couple of nights later and sat at the PDR. But he shook my hand. He shook Thomas, who was his waiter's hand. He knew our names. Well, the next time he came back, he knew our names, which I loved.
Beautiful. I remember at one time we had George Michael. Did you look
Really?
after him? Yeah.
No, I didn't.
No?
I remember when I was a waiter there, I was supposed to look after the Rolling Stones. We knew that the Rolling Stones were coming in at night time, and we didn't know who was going to be looking after them. I came back from my break, and my name is on looking after the Rolling Stones. I'm like, yes, everybody else hated me. And then they kept calling up and saying, we're coming late, we're going to be late, and they never showed. That was really disappointing.
Yep.
But so we did have some really big names in there. I looked after Beyonce myself, took her order. They were very enclosed. Like, I don't know what they were talking about. There was no engagement, but she was polite enough.
Yeah. How long it took you to grow from the waiter to the manager?
I think that was within less than 2 years.
Yeah.
So I'd been a manager in many restaurants before. But as I said, I started there just as a waiter because I just needed a job. I wanted, once I was there, it was really good money. I liked working there. I liked the people, liked the culture.
I think you were the culture, actually.
Well, maybe I became the culture. So, I really liked it. But I had done that for quite a long time beforehand.
Yeah. What was the best venue you worked at prior to Otto?
Oh, my favourite venue is the best venue I ever worked at was the Light Brigade Hotel in Paddington. So I was the restaurant manager there. And it's funny because I didn't mean to even apply for that job. I had been working at the Bayswater Brasserie. I'd been the restaurant manager at the Bayswater Brasserie, which is a different story. That's another institution in Sydney, which I loved. However, when I left the Bayswater, I was kind of burnt out. And I went travelling. And when I came back, I thought, I've had enough of being a restaurant manager. I just want to have an easy life and make tips, and that's it. So my favourite job ever was Light Brigade Hotel. The reason that I ended up there was because I was looking through the newspaper. That's how long ago it was. And I saw this job, which was for a maitre d'. And I didn't know enough about classic hospitality terms. I thought a maitre d' was a person who gave out menus. I thought it was a host. And I thought, I don't want to be a restaurant manager. I just want to be a host. Just want to rock up, seat people and give them menus. So I went for this job interview. And so I went, and the guy who owned the hotel, I would have been early 30s. The guy who owned the hotel was 27.
Wow.
So he meets me downstairs. He'd just bought this hotel in Paddington and he was renovating it. It was a couple of $1 million, his first pub that he'd ever owned. And he bought the hotel. He was renovating the first floor. It had been this old man's hotel with accommodation upstairs, but he was putting in a restaurant and a cocktail bar. And I went, and so he takes me for the tour of what they're doing and what he wants to happen. I get there, there's no floor. So we're walking over beams and he's showing me, it's going to be this and we're going to do this and have a cocktail bar and the DJ's going to be over there and the restaurant and I've got this rock pool chef. And I was in. I was so excited. And then I realised that the job he's advertising was for a restaurant manager. He'd called it maitre d'. He'd just come back from Swiss hospitality school. So he was calling things by their proper name.
Yep.
I got the job as the restaurant manager. And I think the reason why I loved it so much was because it was the first time that he gave me carte blanche to set it up exactly the way I wanted. I got to buy the glasses, the cutlery, employ the people right from scratch, the whole thing.
Yeah.
Loved it.
Did you implement what you learned at that site in Otto?
No, not really. It was very different style. Like it was. I think everything that you learn in one job you take to the next anyway.
Mm-hmm.
What I learnt there would be, you know, the older I got, the more experienced I became in managing people and situations. So I got a lot of that. That place was packed. We would do 3 sittings. And I felt proud that I was able to do that because I was managing the bookings and I had a real knack for being able to turn the tables. Or the owner's friends would rock up and they were people that I'd known as VIPs in the last restaurant that I worked at. Plus, they were friends of the owners saying, hi, we're 8 people, we don't have a booking, where can we sit, Fiona? Hi, Fiona, hi, Fiona. And I literally would have to pull a table out of my ass to find that. And I was able to do it. And I think that even the girl who was my assistant manager was amazing. She learnt so much from me about how to manage tables and move this over there and let's carry in that extra table that's rusty and sitting on the roof and we're going to make a 6 into a 9 and all that kind of stuff. Just being able to maximise numbers.
I just remembered how you were doing it in Otto all the time, every mornings.
I loved that. That was like playing Tetris.
Yeah.
I thought I was really good at that.
I think you were amazing.
Stop it.
No, seriously. How good it was setting up all the tables at 10 a.m. in the morning.
Oh my God, that was a big deal. But I think that I did help teach other people how we would do that. And remember, all the tables weren't matching. So it was like, we need a 9 out there, but we need four small squares, not 4 rectangles because they're not going to fit. Yeah. Anyway, I knew exactly the length and breadth of every single table and how, if I put 4 small rectangles, I knew exactly how many centimetres that table was going to be and what I could put on the other end of it.
Who came up with an idea to set up a tablecloth in a way there is, when you fold it, it needs to face a certain direction?
Oh, that was before me.
Before, yeah.
Yeah, that was before me. I do like the idea in, fine dining hospitality that there is attention to detail like that. Like, once you've worked in an establishment that really gives attention to detail, all the forks, one thumbnail above the table, the logo of the glasses turned just so, the angle between the water glass and the wine glass. I love that.
Yeah.
You look at those TV specials that are about how the palace sets a banquet. They do that. They have rulers. I love that stuff.
Beautiful. Okay, how about we will move now to the interesting story you shared with us with Kiana.
Oh, Keanu Reeves.
How's the juice?
Okay. So when I was working at
This is a good
the
juice.
Bayswater, this is
Beetroot one.
blackcurrant juice.
I'm having a beetroot one.
Oh, nice. They look so similar. When I was a waiter at the Bayswater Brasserie.
Your second favorite place?
No. So in the Light Brigade Hotel would be my favourite place. Otto and Bayswater would probably be equal second.
Yeah.
It's just that I was at Bayswater for 4 years and Otto for 17, so
Yeah.
it kind of... but so when I was at the Bayswater, that would have been late 90s, whenever they were making the Matrix movie in Sydney. And so the Bayswater was where all the famous people used to come in Sydney. The cast of Matrix were coming. We knew that they were coming. We had an area that was not quite a closed-off private area. It sat about 30 people. They had 2 tables booked. They all came in. They're all standing around. Nobody's sitting down. We wanted them to sit down so we could start ordering them drinks and food and all that kind of stuff. And Hugo Weaving's there, Brian Brown, all the other cast, Keanu. So I was a waiter, there was another waiter, just waiting to kind of start serving them, but we couldn't even interrupt their conversations. Keanu, he just wanted something to drink and something to eat. He didn't want to wait for anybody else. He just wanted to find somebody to tell him to bring him some stuff, which was me.
He was young at that time, yeah?
We all were.
Yeah, same age?
Well, late 90s. He would have been, he was hot. I don't know, how old was Keanu in The Matrix?
I didn't ask you if he was
Google
hot.
Well, I just gave that information anyway.
He was very hot, apparently.
He still is for his age. So I kind of just, I don't know whether he grabbed me or whether I asked him, but he said, bring me some Chardonnay and oysters. And he did say it like that. It was a bit, but he really just, I don't know, maybe he'd been out all day and he was hungry, but he kind of just wanted something without all the hoo-ha of everybody going, hi, and kiss a kiss. So I didn't ask him, do you want to have a look at the wine list, choose a Chardonnay, blah, 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 blah. I didn't ask him if he wanted it by the glass. I just went and got him a bottle of really nice Chardonnay and I ordered him a dozen oysters. And he was in heaven. He sat down at the table with his stuff before all the other people even sat down. He just knew what he wanted. And he was very friendly. And then they came back many times. And he would always ask for me. And if I wasn't there, he didn't know my name, unfortunately, but I was called the blonde one or the blonde waitress. So if I wasn't there, he'd say, where's the blonde one? Where's the blonde? So he would ask for me. And if I came into work the next day, they'd say, Keanu was asking for you again.
Yeah?
Yeah,
Did
absolutely.
Did you have the same nickname in Otto?
And who?
You,
me?
Yeah.
What was my nickname?
No, I'm asking you, did you have the same nickname in Otto? The blonde? Or not?
No. Actually, when I was at Otto, I think some of the customers used to call me the Terminator, which is true. Well, on a do you remember Friday lunches? How crazy!
Yeah, it was
Friday
crazy.
lunches just used to be crazy, and people didn't want to leave.
Yeah.
You know, and then
And you need to reset the tables.
well, I loved doing Friday lunches, managing Friday lunches. Because you got to be there for this crazy busy shift where where all the customers are having a great time, and then you got to walk away at the end of the day. The manager that came on at 4:00 on a Friday, all those people that were lovely to the lunchtime manager, hello darling, thank you so much for this great seat. Well, by the time it comes 5, 6 o'clock, they're not nice anymore, and they don't want to go. So the nice manager that gave them the seat is gone,
Yeah.
and the bad manager who's going to chuck them out and wants to get everything ready for dinner is there, and they hated me.
And you were doing nights.
Well,
Friday
actually,
nights.
do you know what's funny is the women that used to eat there on a Friday lunch would turn really bitchy and go, Where's the other manager? Where's Graham? Right? And I was like, sorry, Graham's gone now. The women were really bitchy, and the men were so much easier for me to be able to humour into leaving.
Yeah.
You know, and because they were the same ones every single Friday afternoon, they'd see me come in and go, no, we're going, okay? And so I'd be able to muck around with them and have fun and, okay, just one more for you guys and then you've got to go, okay? So And that's why I think that the Friday lunch manager used to love having me on the Friday, because I would just get it done.
Yeah.
Even though the female people would be complaining about
You would
me,
never
but-
do lunches?
Well, yeah, I did. I used to do them for years.
Yeah.
And then somebody else wanted to do that shift.
Yeah.
And I had to be the terminator. I did enjoy it though. What was the original question that you asked
No,
me?
I think
though?
you
It wasn't
did.
about that.
No, we were talking about Chiana.
Oh yeah, we were talking about Keanu. That's finished now.
Finito la musica with Chiana.
Keanu.
Chiana.
Keanu
And
Yeah.
how you pronounce the rest?
Reeves.
Reeves, okay. Next question, Fiona. Ma.
Mm-hmm.
How did you end up in hospitality in general?
Well,
Was it a choice?
it was a necessity. Actually, when I was 21, I moved to London just to start my travels. I was a backpacker.
Yeah.
And when I arrived there, I was staying for the first couple of nights with a friend of mine that I had met in Fremantle. Anyway, she was working. I didn't know what I was going to do. I went there with the intention of getting a job, saving money over the winter, and then travelling around Europe. But I was going to work in London first. But I didn't know what I was going to do. I had worked in offices in Sydney before that. Oh, and I'd worked in a pub, but just as a bar chick in a pub, one night a week after work. So when I got to London, my friend whose place I was staying at, she worked at a restaurant in Covent Garden, and she'd never had any experience before, and she told me the tips she made, and I'm like, I'm going to work in a restaurant in Covent Garden as well. So I arrived one day. The next day, I went into Covent Garden, and I was going to apply for. I didn't want to cramp her style and ask for a job in the same place, so I went to the restaurant across from her. And I went for an interview, and I got the job. And then that night, she had to teach me how to carry 3 plates.
Yeah.
And that was my first job. That was a great job. I had such a good time there.
In which one?
And it was good. It was called Maxwell's, which is kind of the equivalent of a Hard Rock Cafe,
Yeah.
And it was good because it really gave me the skills of doing many things at once and carrying, but there wasn't much finesse in that job. You could carry like 6 plates in one hand, and it'd be burgers and shit, and they'd all be kind of sitting on each other.
Yeah.
Right? You wouldn't do that with fine dining food,
No.
but it was really good starting place.
When you look back where you started, do you think the hospitality industry changed? Or the way people are served? Or it's more or
No,
less
not
the
the way
same?
people are served.
No?
Oh, look, it's so... that was a really good starting place because it was all about quantity. Also, that was about fun. When I was a really young waiter, I just wanted to have fun. We had cocktails hidden behind shelves so that we could drink on the job and, eating fries off plates and stuff like that. I didn't take that job too seriously because I wasn't, I didn't think of hospitality as anything more than just a way to earn money to go travelling.
Yeah.
But I guess I went from that job. So I worked there probably several months, had a great time. Then I did go travelling. Then I came back to London, worked there another winter, same restaurant. Then I went travelling because I was in Europe for 5 years. Then I came back to London the third time, and an Australian friend of mine was working in a different restaurant where they made double the tips of the other place. So I remember I'm gonna go and try and get a job there. It was called Joe Allen, which in London was also an institution. It was a late night restaurant where a lot of theatre people and still a lot of celebrities used to go to. So I went there. I went for a job at Joe Allen, and it was a 3-day trial, right? So if you
Paid?
get through unpaid, you got £1 per hour, right? So the first trial was maybe, 7 hours, the first night. I just had to follow around this, the head waiter who's doing the trial. Her name was Andrea. Anyway, and she was she was awful. And there's a reason why I'm mentioning her name, because I'm going to come back to her. So Andrea was absolutely terrifying. And she would be like, no, you can't do it like that. You have to do it.
So what nationality?
Anyway, so at the end of my first
what
night...
is your nationality?
German.
Okay.
I won't go into that. Anyway, at the end of my first night, she told me how shit I was, but that she was going to give me another chance. So I was like, just... It really made me think, I know that I'm good enough for this job. I'm going to get this job. Made me dig my heels in and go, I'll get this job and I'll show her.
Mm-hmm.
Second night, I come, same thing. I'm working my ass off, doing the best that I can. She's being horrible to me, really a Nazi. And she
Did she shave her mustache?
and she says, I'm shit. I'm going to give you one more chance. So I come back for number 3. She tells me at the end, I'm shit, but she's going to employ me.
Wow.
So what I really learnt from her style of recruitment was that the only people that worked in that restaurant, because the service was immaculate, the only people that worked there were people that were hard as nails and super resilient. Because if you were going to cry because she said something nasty to you on the second or the first night and you're going to leave, sure, that's great, because that person's not working there. Every single person that worked there was hardcore, didn't cry, and really, really good at their job. And that, I don't think I was the best waiter when I started working there, but by the time that I think that I had the resilience that they were looking for, but by the time I finished, I thought I was a shit hot waiter.
Did you call her a Terminator?
No, but I'll tell you what did happen with Andrea. I turned into her.
Did you?
Yeah. Well,
Ooh.
later on, I recognised so many things in myself and my managing style that really I hated in her years later.
Wow.
Well, you know, the abused becomes the abuser. I don't think that I was horrible to people, but I had really high expectations of people. You know, so like even back in Otto, if I would have been training somebody, expected that if I said, look, this is the way we do it,
Mm-hmm.
you know, we put this here, etc., I expected them to do that.
Yeah.
So if I went back the next day and they weren't doing that, I would pick up on that and tell them so. And they didn't like that. So whether that's authoritarian or whether that's just having standards, that's the thing. And you know yourself that you mentioned before, if somebody's hard, the way to make that go away and get that person off your back is to do what's required of you, which I never thought was unreasonable.
You were looking for the competency.
Absolutely. Some people didn't want to do it or couldn't do it.
Yeah.
And so, you know, and the other thing is that if you've got a team of people that are all really meeting those benchmarks and doing everything the same way, all the other staff are happy with that as well. If the amount of staff that used to come to me and say, and they would complain to me because another staff member wasn't towing the line, but they didn't want to be the ones that went and said to him, hey, you're putting the knives down crooked. You're putting that in the wrong place. Your napkins aren't poofy enough. They didn't want to say that. They wanted me to say that.
Yeah.
And I didn't mind being the bad guy.
But you're the manager anyway.
But at the end of the day, oh, yeah, but it's like really, there's such tiny things. But nobody wants to say that stuff. But everybody likes it when it is done properly.
Yeah, of course.
So
Especially
I never minded being the bad guy.
No, I think you were a good guy. I have a question to you. Look, I consider you as an expert in the fine dining. Again, you went through everything as a waiter, as a manager, then you worked in the office as well. You looked at the numbers.
Which you helped me with.
What is it?
Which you helped me with.
No, that's okay. I didn't really help you with anything. You learned everything your own way. My question to you, how to make the fine dining better? How to uplift the standard?
You mean in general?
in general?
Oh, I don't know. I think that you could only take it venue by venue. There is something that in Australia, I never really liked super traditional fine dining, which is, always served from the left, blah, 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 blah. I think that most of the venues that I worked, I like common sense. Even if you weren't supposed to clear from that side, if the person was leaning over or was uncomfortable, then you go from the other side and the world won't end.
Yeah.
I hated those really, really strict rules. I think that Australia is a little bit more casual with fine dining now than probably England would be in fine dining. Most of the customers don't know the rules, so I think you just do what makes sense from a comfort point of view. People don't even know what cutlery to use, really. You can't expect that customers know what they're doing in fine dining experiences. I think you just need to do what makes sense and to possibly educate them along the way while making them feel comfortable at the same time.
What is the customers looking for at the fine dining venue?
Look, I didn't work. Otto, I don't think you would call fine dining. It's close there, but it would not be in the same level as Key or somewhere like that, really. So Otto would have been the finest dining that I worked in all those other places, which was that level of restaurant is where I loved because it wasn't full of rules and regulations. The restaurants that I did work at were expensive and provided a great service, but they weren't that fancy degustation, etc. What was your question?
The juice is working, obviously. How to make the fine dining better?
Oh, yeah, I don't know. Ask somebody in fine dining.
You are from fine dining.
I just told you that I'm not. I'm just from dining.
Look, in terms of the waitering from staffing, do you think in Australia we need to find a way how to improve the quality stuff?
Oh, I think that's a really hard question. I think
because the turnover is
restaurants
so big.
Restaurants, this is an observation. Restaurants that provide where people tip well will attract the best waiters. We talked about this the other day. Restaurants that don't provide any tips at all, well, people will just go and get a job there. Any old person can go get a job there. Tips are a real incentive for good service. I've always found when I go to the suburbs, I find the service not quite what I would like it to be, but I think that that's because there's no real incentive for full-time or people that are going to, whether they're casual or full-time, but make that their career. I find a lot of restaurants are staffed by just students and people working part-time. When that happens, your service is going to be ordinary. When it's staffed by people who this is their job and they're there for a reason, I think the service is better.
Yep.
There are a few restaurants that I go to in the Shire, for example, which is where I'm from, where the service is immaculate, and I'm surprised.
But I would assume in the Shire you'd have a lot of staff, locals, Australians.
I'm constantly disappointed by service. I try not to let it put it down or on my enjoyment of the evening, but it's really quite basic,
But where the staff from? Are they local Australians?
Yeah, no, I think that if you're in the suburbs, I think that they've just got local people who are just working part-time and they're not particularly skilled, especially in small restaurants. To me, really good service is about anticipation, about the person that is serving you can kind of tell when you might be almost finished that bottle of wine and may offer you another one without you sitting there finishing all your drinks, trying to flag somebody down for 20 minutes and you know, you can't even get their eye. And they've just missed the sale of another bottle of wine.
Yeah.
In fact, that is probably one of my gripes would be with service, that when you go into a restaurant and you get sat at your table and they walk away.
Yeah.
Or they say, can I bring you some water? And it's like, I already know what I want to drink before I arrive at that place, whether I want a glass of champagne or I want a cocktail or whatever. I've already made up my mind. So if you ask me that when you sit me, I will have one extra drink. If they miss the opportunity to ask people who they've just sat down, can I bring you a cocktail or a glass of wine or a beer to start? They will sell one extra drink per person.
Yep.
Maybe on a table of 4, they'll sell, if 2 people arrive first, and 2 people arrive 20 minutes later, if they miss that opportunity to ask that person, would you like a drink while you're waiting?
Yep.
If the person doesn't want to drink and, oh, you're rushing me, you know, we haven't even sat down, fine. But me, they'll get an extra drink out of me. And I think that people are missing.
By the way, I heard this advice 13 years ago and it did work.
It does work.
It 100%.
The amount of times that I get sat in a restaurant and it's like, I know what I want to drink, can you please just ask me? And
Yep.
without me, because they dump you at the table and they rush away and it's like,
Yeah.
it's
Yep.
so true.
Very true.
And do you remember what I used to say way back?
About
About
massages?
there's no water emergency. You know, some people used to, oh, I've got to get you some water. It's
Yeah.
like, this person is not starving to, you know, they're not dying of thirst. You don't have to rush get them water. Ask them if they'd like a drink. You go get them a drink. And then if they want some water,
Yeah.
ask that later on.
Very true. You know what I
Julia
think
Taylor loved that as well. No water emergency.
Yeah. Do you know what I think you need to do? I think you need to train weight stuff. One-on-one. Provide them training.
Yeah, no, that's been said.
Yeah? Did you try to
That's
implement
not
it?
happening.
Why not?
No, I thought about that. I thought about retraining after I'd left the restaurant to train.
But people need it.
No, there's people out there.
Look, I think if a person decided...
Yeah, but don't forget, look, the people that are going to hospitality schools to learn hospitality, some of them are those people that I mentioned before that are not really a great fit for the hospitality. Some people you just can't teach. They just, you know, you can teach people how to carry plates and you can teach people how to do this, but I think hospitality uses a lot of skills of organisation, and, you know, reading people, reading what people want to have. I also think that enjoying dining out yourself really helps to know what is needed.
Yeah. No, very true.
You know, if you go to a restaurant, you don't want, nobody wants to have to wave down a waiter. If you're a waiter that's got a section and you're overlooking your whole section, you know, try to meet people. You're looking at the table, you're looking at how full their bottle of wine is, and you're looking at their eyes. Is anybody trying to get my attention? It should be eyes, not arms. Correct?
Very good statement.
I
like
know.
it. I don't remember that.
Excuse me. Oh, look, I hate being that person in a restaurant that is waving, but sometimes what else is going to happen?
Did you enjoy doing more a la carte or you like doing functions?
A la carte.
A la carte?
Yeah. No, there's more interaction. You know,
Yeah.
you're taking people's orders. People are asking you for your opinions about the food. Function is just numbers.
From your opinion, how important it is to know the menu, wine list? No, I know the answer.
Super. It's very important. I don't think you need to know every single one on the list, but you need to know something. Food, of course.
Yeah.
If I go to a restaurant
Allergies?
and I ask, I don't mind people that have allergies. I just don't like people that have fake allergies and say, oh, I can't have this because of this and I'm allergic to that. And then something arrives on the table, like somebody's saying, oh, dairy-free, I can't have this, can you not do this? And then their friend orders a cheese plate and they're hoeing into the cheese. And then You say, "Oh, I'm sorry, I thought you were lactose intolerant." Oh, no, cheese is all right. Oh God, the amount of people that have done that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh God, though. But remember those big all venue things, those events we used to do at Otto with like 200, 300 people, and there'd be all those different tables, and then on each, and it'd be a set menu, so everybody's eating the same thing,
Yeah.
except for
Few.
the vegans, the gluten-free,
Yeah.
the lactose intolerant, the blah, blah, blah. And we'd have to, the chefs are only making one thing, and then you have to work out who on each table is having that thing. And that was the worst part about doing those big events.
Do you think it was the hardest for you to work with the customers, with the wait staff, or with the chefs in the back?
Oh, no, I never had a problem with the chefs.
No?
Not at Otto. I have worked in restaurants where there is that war, and it's a very old school kind of classic French kitchen versus front of house thing. And I really, really do not like that at all. When I was younger, there was quite a lot of restaurants that worked like that, but I really hate that. Otto was never like that. I mean, a little bit. There's always a little bit of kitchen versus... The kitchen think that the front of house are idiots, and keep making mistakes, and they've got to make it all over again. But no, Otto was pretty good. I was never afraid of any chefs.
Anyone?
I remember a certain head chef of Otto who was kind of moody and used to shout at people, and people were scared of. And then one day I went into the kitchen and I shouted at the top of my voice at him. He was nice to me for about the next 10 years. And I think all the other little chefs were just there going, oh, she's shouting at the chef. I love that.
That's funny.
Yeah.
Any other interesting stories from hospitality? Any particular ones you can share with the audience?
Come to mind.
Any embarrassing moments?
Look, you
Did you
can't
make
just
any
ask me
mistakes?
that.
Did you make
No,
any
I
mistakes?
never made a mistake. I haven't made a mistake since like 1983. When I was 1. No, that's not true. I'm older than that. That's too broad a question for me to answer.
Yeah, very hard
It's
to
too
remember.
big.
Yeah.
No, look, there's a million stories. There's a million stories.
Do you still keep in touch with your old colleagues?
Yeah, most of my best friends are from hospitality. I've got a friend that I'm still good friends with who I worked with in London. Most of my very good friends are from Otto time. However, the people that remain my friends are people that I was colleagues with when I was a waiter.
Mm-hmm.
So when I was a manager, I'd be friends with the people, but it was kind of on a different level because it was a boss waiter thing. I'm still friends with actually Julia. Well, I was always her boss, but we're still friends.
Yeah.
So that's nice.
Yeah, she's a great person.
Yeah, she is a great person. Hi, Julia.
Julia.
I hope she never sees this.
She will. I'll make sure I'll send it to her actually, personally.
But so it's funny because she was always, we got on really well.
Yeah.
She kind of got me, and her style of management, she was a manager there as well. Her style of management was totally different to mine, but we kind of had our differences, but personally got on very well.
Yeah. I think you balanced each other with her.
Yeah. Well, she was a good cop and I was a bad cop.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely, especially with staff, not just with the
But
customers.
also the other thing was that when she was managing, it was her shift. I wasn't there. If we were working together, I was the boss and she was my right-hand man.
Yeah.
But then for the shifts that she wasn't there, she did her own thing, which was the same with if I was working with, Graham, who was my boss.
Yeah.
If he was the boss, I was a sidekick, or sometimes he used to say to me, you run the show and I'll be your sidekick. It didn't really matter. But when I was there by myself, I was my own boss.
But still good to the team, of course.
Oh, I guess so.
Yeah. Let's say the team, as a team. Okay, that's good to know. Apart of Fiona, of course, the story which we just heard in hospitality, what else do you do? Or what else you were doing apart of course, working in hospitality? You like traveling?
Yes, I have travelled. Actually, hospitality has allowed me to take great trips. I've been to South America, Peru, Bolivia, Cuba,
Wow.
all over Europe, Southeast Asia. I've been to Morocco.
How's the
Great
hospitality?
places.
How's the hospitality in those countries?
Look, when I'm traveling, I'm not going to fancy restaurants. So I guess when I was younger, I was a backpacker. And when you're a backpacker, everything was as cheap as it could be.
Mm.
I knew nothing about hospitality at the time.
Yeah.
You know, actually, when I was in Europe, I started working on private yachts. In fact, that very first job that I got in that in Maxwell's, one of the waitresses there had got a job in the summer on private yachts. So I'm like, I want to do that. So my friend was coming over from Australia, and I had told her, we're going to the south of France because that's where you go to get a job on a boat. So my friend and I, we travelled around. She came over to Australia. We travelled around England, Scotland, Wales, and then we went to Paris. And the idea was that we would go to the south of France, to Antibes, which is where you go to get a job in private yachts, right? Because I'd got this information from my friend. So we go down there, I think it was late April, because that's when you go to get a job. And so we were both, we had our CVs done, we were going to this yacht agency.
Photo shoot?
No. This would have been like 1989.
The year I was
you were
born. No, the year
Really?
I was born, yeah.
Oh, okay. So we both went to Antibes. We didn't know anything. We didn't speak French. We didn't know anything about yachts, but you didn't have to, because the job was to get a job as a steward, which is, cleaning, serving food, making beds, that kind of stuff, opening wine, whatever. So we go there. Di and I both went for the same job, and I got the job. Now, in hindsight, I should have got. It was a pretty shitty job, but it was my first job, and it was on a 77-foot sailing yacht, and it was all-girl crew, 3 of us, me, a Dutch woman, and an American woman.
When you say old crew, you mean like
All-girl crew.
Qantas
All
Airways?
girl.
They hold all the flight attendants.
Well, the staff that work on a boat are called a crew, right? So there was 3 girls, and the skipper, who's the captain. His name was Brian Hoare. He was an asshole. He was the most horrible man that I've ever worked with or for. I don't know whose idea it was to make it all girl, but so none of us had any experience doing anything. And between the 3 of us, we were supposed to be the steward, the deckhand, and the cook. None of us could cook, and none of us could sail.
What did you put in your CV?
I don't know. Anyway, we learnt some shit before we went. I was 21 and I couldn't cook. I didn't know how to cook. When I was a kid in the suburbs of Sutherland Shire, my mother couldn't cook. For me, a restaurant meal was Chinese restaurant or an RSL club. Like, we were not worldly people. So here am I. I've got a job as a cook on a private yacht where the people are paying $60,000 a week to rent this yacht. So before I got the job, before I actually started, I met this Australian chef, and she was a chef on private yachts and had been for years and years and years. So I remember she photocopied all these recipes from the Woman's Weekly to give to me, so that when it was my turn to cook on the yacht, I had something to cook. And we're talking about old school, daggy old recipes like beef stroganoff and shit like that. When I look at the things that I cooked, it's a disaster. I can't believe it. I hope that it was edible. But
Well,
none of the
didn't
girls
try.
could cook. It was just awful. I can't believe those poor people had to eat that stuff.
Did you taste it before serving?
Oh, look. I can't even believe, like, the way I'm a good cook now, I think. Even my presentation, you know, I've been around, I've been watching chefs for a long time.
Yeah.
The way I present, like I could make food for people now and it would be worth $60,000 a week.
Yeah.
But not back then. I was really shit. But so the three of us, we all had to share the job, deckhand, which is doing all the boat stuff, right? Cooking or stewardess, making the beds, serving the customers, blah blah blah. Anyway, so we sailed all the way from France, all around Italy, with no customers. And then we went to Venice. Then we stocked up, bought all the food, etc. Our customers joined us in Venice, and then we sailed down through the Dalmatian Islands, Croatia, and we ended up in Dubrovnik. And then the guests left. Brian Hoare got the sack because he was an asshole. And in the meantime, when we were sailing through Italy, the owner of the boat, who's this old Croatian guy, he was from New York. His name was Dr. Papo, and he looked like Albert Einstein. And we would be sailing, and he was sailing in the boat, another boat of his called Papillon. So there was the boat we were on. Mm-hmm. We were going to pick up the guests. He had his own boat, and they were sailing with a different crew. The skipper of his own personal boat, I set up the interview and I got him the job, which was good because that worked out well for me later because we were friends. Anyway, so we go somewhere and we go to Capri. And Brian Fuckwit Hoare he was just an asshole. He didn't want us to have a nice time. He just wanted us to be polishing knobs or whatever.
There was only one.
And then
obviously.
Dr. Papa would be like, Goyles, I'm going to take you to Capri. And he would take us to Capri and he would be giving us cocktails and taking us up on rides and showing us around. And when he'd bring us back to the boat, Brian Hoare was fuming and he'd take it out on us and be really horrible to us. Anyway, after the guests got off the boat, Dr. Papo fired Brian, which is great, which meant that the three girls were just on the boat with no captain.
Who was the skipper?
The guy on the other boat that Dr. Papo owned, because Dr. Papo left, so the two boats were together. Martin, who was the skipper of the other boat, was left in charge of us, and he was my friend. So we did nothing for weeks and weeks and weeks. Well, I mean, we upkept the boat and stuff like that. We had a great time. This is before the war in Yugoslavia, only months. And I learned so much. We went octopus fishing, and I learned all about sea urchins. We met this a chef that took us up. That was the first time I had steak tartare and learned all about that. That was a really good food experience.
That's why you saw good sailing 5 years ago when we went sailing in Kogarah Bay.
That's right.
Yeah. I was just going through the pictures.
Hey, I worked as a professional sailor.
Yeah, you were good with the ropes.
Yeah, great with the ropes. Anyway, I quit there because there wasn't much else to do, and then I left and went travelling by myself, which was the first time I'd really gone travelling by myself, which kind of set me up for a lifetime of travelling by myself. I became very confident at travelling by myself.
Yeah. Okay, 36 years ago in 89, you were on a boat.
36.
At 21, what you were doing before? Did you study anything related to hospitality in Australia?
No. So when I left school, I got accepted into UTS to do my Bachelor of Business. But I didn't really want to do that. So I wanted to defer because when I finished school, I didn't know what I wanted to do. So I wanted to defer. They weren't taking deferments. So I didn't do that. So I worked, and I worked for an insurance company, and that was kind of fun, just easy. I went in entry level. I was working for an insurance company, and then after that, I moved to when Australia won the America's Cup. I don't know why, but I decided that I was going to go over to Fremantle when Australia was hosting the America's Cup, which was a massive big sailing race. I knew nothing about sailing. This is before I'd been on the boat. It just seemed like a really good time. I think my whole life has been about chasing a good time. Anyway, so I moved over to Fremantle. I'd already set up a job with a friend of my sister's so that I had a job and a house to live in when I got there. Anyway, I got there. And the guy was the biggest asshole on the planet, who had decided that I didn't get paid unless we did enough customers. And therefore, he wasn't paying me because it wasn't that successful a business. And so I was living in the house that he'd rented, but so he was considering that the rent he was paying was my pay. So he was the nastiest piece of work. So I only did that for a couple of weeks, and then I quit. And so there I was, and I'd never travelled. This is the first time I've really been away from home. I was quite independent.
This was my question. Yeah, were you always so independent?
That would have helped a lot. That probably really was the start of many things, the way that all turned out. And I think that what really that little experience brought me was that I knew that I was not going to be coming home with my tail between my legs, because my father had said to me, when I quit my job for the insurance company, my father said to me, I said, I've quit my job and I'm going to move to Fremantle for the America's Cup. And my father said, no, I don't think so. So that was like a red flag to a bull. I was like, I'm moving to Fremantle and I'm an adult and you can't stop me. I was quite rebellious as a teenager. It was a hard time for my parents.
Yeah.
So when that happened and I did move over there and I had this stuff all worked out and that just did not work. I couldn't stand it a minute longer than I did. And so, but I was having a great time. Fremantle at that time, all the sailors were there, and this is before most of the tourists had arrived. So all the sailors that were kind of sailing every day as practice, they were partying every night. There was parties all over town. It was so much fun. As the actual race got closer, they kind of took their training more seriously and stopped having parties, and then the town started filling up with tourists. So the partying kind of changed, but was still fun. When I finished working at that shitty place and I had nowhere to stay, I moved into the youth hostel. But because there were so many tourists, you were only allowed to stay at the youth hostel for 1 week. So I get to the end of my week and I haven't got much money left, and I didn't know where I was going to stay the next night. And I'd met this woman just working in a shop. Every day I'd go in and have a chit chat to her. I didn't buy anything because I couldn't afford it. But she was really nice and we had a laugh together. And one day she said to me, I want to go out on a boat tomorrow. I've been invited out. Would you be able to mind the shop and I'll pay you? I was like, yes. So I said yes, and I did the shop that day. And it was like this. Oh, it had clothes and touristy shit there. Anyway, when she came back that night and she closed up the shop, and she'd been having fun all day, she said, do you want to come out for drinks? We're all going out for drinks. So the people that had invited her out on the boat asked, I had drinks with them. And one of the guys was the skipper of this yacht that was in the Royal Perth Yacht Club. And it was empty because they'd just brought this racing yacht over from Hong Kong. So he's in Royal Perth Yacht Club, skipper of an empty yacht in prime real estate, and asked me if I wanted to stay there for free and I didn't have to sleep with anybody. That was great. I love that.
Is the last statement truth?
Yeah. No, but it's just that if you tell that story, it sounds like we were together, but that's not true. I probably stayed there for 2 months.
2 months for free sounds too good to be true.
2 months rent-free. I wasn't working that much. Yeah. I was working at that shop. I got more jobs. Then she opened another shop. I was sewing on silk buttons on beautiful handmade dresses.
Wow.
It was weird. Yep. No, it was a great time. And then I left there and started renting in this house. Actually, just a quick story. In Fremantle, there was this guy that we were very good friends with. And I remember this was the time where there was this serial killer in Fremantle. called David Burney and his wife, and he's probably one of Australia's worst serial killers. Anyway, my friend found out by watching the news that the house he had just rented was the house where David Burney lived and tortured all his victims. But he only knew, I think I was sitting there watching it when he was like, that's the house I live in. Horrible, horrible story. I don't know why I digress. Anyway, so Fremantle taught me resilience.
Yep.
It taught me to kind of just depend on, hey, something's going to work out. And it really did. And when I was a backpacker in Europe, that really, I depended on that a lot. Like not knowing where I'm getting my next money, not knowing where I'm going to sleep that night, but something always worked out.
Do you still have the same view?
No.
Why not? What's changed?
I think that you need actually traveling's a little bit different. I think that in real life you need a bit more of a fallback plan. Like for example, if I say, hey, I don't know where my next paycheck is coming from, then there's a possibility that I can't pay my mortgage repayment and a possibility that I'm going to lose my house and blah, blah, blah. So the stakes are kind of higher now. If I was traveling and something happens where you don't know, I guess I don't put myself in those situations. And when you're traveling, what's the worst that can happen? You're going to sleep in a train station, you know? But I guess way back in those days, there was always mum and dad. You know, like if I found myself in some strange country and I didn't have any money, okay, 1 night, 2 nights, fine. But there was still a phone call that you could make. Whereas actually my parents aren't alive anymore. So that's actually a bit, right now there's no fallback, you know.
At least you have many friends who I'm sure will always look after you.
True. But I hope that not to put myself in that situation.
Yeah, okay. Did your parents have anything to do with hospitality?
No.
No? Where did you learn all those skills? Be outgoing, being extrovert, being a social person? From school?
No, I think that, hospitality, there is a lot of skills that you learn from hospitality that may not be credited. You know, if you try to change careers, for example, there's so many things that you have learned from hospitality which are called soft skills. You know, they're not necessarily things that you can show in a trial shift or put on paper, but things like resilience, problem solving, multitasking, all those kind of things. I think that came with experience in hospitality, and having, you know, being a strong enough personality to accrue those skills. Some people just aren't meant for that job. People that are easily upset or take things to heart, that's working in customer service anywhere is probably not that. In fact, the job I have at the moment is in customer service, but completely different. And the jobs that I think what made me find it really easy, when it's a very difficult job but completely different to hospitality, is all those years of practice in hospitality, working with really difficult people, difficult situations, but just applying it to humans anywhere. You know, but there's also part of hospitality is acting as well. So, you know, if you're at a table, people are giving you a hard time, you're not showing them really what the thoughts are in your head. You have a facade, which is called professionalism. If you want to bitch about the customers, you will do it out the back to the other, or you will do it at the end of the night and talk about what happened or what that person said to you. But when you're there, you put on the happy smile, you are trying to be personable. You know, that doesn't mean completely taking shit, but it's a learned skill, which I think some people's personality embraces more and some people don't. let's face it, most people that go in hospitality are only there for a certain amount of time and then they're out. And then they go find a real job, or they have families, or they go back to study or whatever. It's usually a young person's job,
Do you
right?
think it's undervalued, the profession in hospitality? We're talking about the
Yes.
front of the house predominantly.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Do you think it's because of the perception is wrong?
Yeah, I think that people don't think of waiters. I don't think people think it's a real profession.
Mm. Which you know is not true.
Well, in better restaurants, people are there for much longer periods of time because the
Mm.
money that they make is equal to what they could make in another profession.
Yeah.
Somebody working in a cafe full time, the money that they're going to make, they would make more in another profession. Tips are what make it into a real profession.
Yeah.
So if there are a restaurant with good tips, that will attract better waiters who are more likely to stay in the profession long term.
Beautiful.
Because if you wanted to have a family or whatever, well, hospitality is not the greatest for that, for a start. But if you wanted to have a family and, with a certain wage, and your goal is to be a waiter, well, look, most people that are waiters that are serious about the industry will go up. They will want to be a manager or have their own restaurant.
Mhm.
If they're not really interested in that, then they'll probably just do it, finish their studies, and move on.
Nothing wrong
Or
with
become-
excelling and challenging yourself and grow as a manager towards, chase
Yeah,
those
absolutely.
high positions.
Absolutely.
But that's why I think people need to be serious about those jobs. And if they are not, maybe they don't need to be hired to start with.
Oh, no. If you only hired hospitality people that were serious about the industry, it would be empty.
Mm.
Most people start hospitality because they're a student at university and they need a part-time job.
Mm. But then the service is zero.
Not necessarily. There's a lot of people, I think, in hospitality that do what they do because they actually really enjoy it.
Mm.
There are those people that are in hospitality and been there for a long time that hate people. I could name a few, but I won't. But so they think that they're a shit hot waiter, but they really just bitch about every customer and they're really not interested in giving people a good time.
Mm. What one advice would you give to our audience, especially the ones who
What
maybe
audience?
we'll find out soon?
Hi, Mum and Dad. Oh no, that's right, they're dead.
You're telling hi to my parents most probably.
Oh, you want us to Нет,
Да.
спасибо. You want me to speak in Russian?
Can you?
I just did.
Anything else?
Да.
No, but seriously, what one advice would you give to our audience, especially the ones who may be looking at a career in hospitality? What do they need to do to enjoy it?
Not be shit. That's a start. No, I think that you have to. I think not hating people is a really good start. It's. I think that it's a great industry. I think it's really interesting. One day is different to the next day. It's physically demanding, but the more busy you are, the less your body feels any kind of pain. Standing around in an empty restaurant or in a quiet period just standing is really tiresome for your body, and that's when your body starts to ache. Would you agree?
100%.
Yeah. Quiet nights are the worst. Fast nights, busy. It's funny. So many waiters, they complain if it's too busy, but really being quiet is much worse. I think if I had my time again, if you find yourself that you like hospitality and you're having fun, what I would have done differently is probably studied hospitality further while I was doing the job, because that means that you can go up the ladder of restaurants. Normally, if you're a waiter, that is not a bad waiter, and you get offered the job as a supervisor and then eventually manage a restaurant. Managing a restaurant is kind of as far as you'll go without doing something else. If you want to be the general manager or the director or the whatever, I think you need to do more than just work your way up. That's, I kind of regret not doing that. And I know why I didn't do that is because I was too busy having a good time. I did have a very good time.
Yeah. And the advice is, I would guess, is just for people to try to excel in their knowledge
Look,
while they're working.
yeah, if you're in it, be the best at it that you can be. You know, being complacent or not interested, really, that just means you shouldn't be in hospitality. And I'm sure that a person that was that will only be doing it while they're either studying something else or trying to get into something else.
Yeah.
But it is a career, and I think the restaurants, particularly restaurants and hotels in Australia, are taken a lot more seriously than they used to be.
Very good. What a phenomenal interview, Fiona Ma. Thank you very much. I personally enjoyed it. I learned so much about you
thanks.
today.
Oh, really?
Yes. I think we can continue it next time at the dinner, maybe.
I think that I may have used some of my best material outside.
No, I'm pretty sure you mentioned a
What
few.
we spoke about earlier, we spoke about some more interesting things than you and I talked about. But, you know, it was organic.
100%.
It only
very
just
good.
happened because that's the way the conversation went.
Yeah.
Thanks for having me.
No, thank you, Fiona. I'm sure our audience did learn a lot. And if you guys have any questions, just please write a comment. And I'm sure Fiona can help
All
me.
three of you.
Isn't it 3.5? 3.5 men.
Yeah.
3.5 Samuels from the ones who went on the boat trip.
I don't know what you're talking about.
I'll remind you later. Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye.